In the rapidly shifting landscape of global power, there are few moments that capture the world's attention as sharply as when two seemingly different figures converge on the global stage. On one side stands Donald Trump, former president of the United States, businessman and deal-maker, whose name has been tied to wealth, bold promises, and controversial politics. On the other side stands Ibrahim Traoré, the young and fiery leader of Burkina Faso, who has emerged as a new face of African resistance, sovereignty, and unapologetic defiance against Western dominance. The announcement that Trump had offered Traoré a $15 billion oil and gold deal instantly reverberated across capitals, media outlets, and financial markets. Yet, what truly shook the world was not the size of the deal, but Traoré's response, a response that symbolized a wider struggle between Africa's independence and the lure of external power. To understand the weight of this moment, one must look beyond the headline. A $15 billion deal in oil and gold is not merely a transaction, it represents leverage, influence, and long-term geopolitical stakes. Oil as the lifeblood of modern economies, and gold as the timeless marker of wealth and financial security together form the backbone of global power dynamics. For Trump, known for positioning himself as the ultimate negotiator, this was more than business. It was an attempt to secure an anchor in Africa's resurging resource economy, while also presenting himself as the figure who could reset America's declining influence on the continent. For Traoré, however, the stakes were far different. His young administration has centered itself on protecting Burkina Faso's sovereignty, resisting foreign exploitation, and proving that African nations can rise on their own terms without bowing to the weight of external promises. The offer itself was breathtaking in its scope. Reports suggest that the deal was structured to give American firms access to untapped oil reserves within Burkina Faso and neighboring regions, along with exploration rights in gold mines long courted by French, Chinese, and Russian interests. In exchange, the United States, under Trump's deal framework, would provide direct investment, infrastructure development, and military aid to support stability against extremist threats. On paper, this might have seemed like a win-win proposition. For a country still developing its industrial base, $15 billion represents transformative capital that could fund roads, schools, hospitals, and factories. But as with most offers, the fine print revealed the deeper layers of dependency, influence, and control that would inevitably follow. Traoré's response was not rushed, nor was it simplistic. He gathered his advisors, economists, military leaders, and even voices from the grassroots movements that have supported his rise. The answer he delivered days later shook not only Trump's team, but also the broader Western establishment that has long assumed Africa would eventually bow to the enticement of wealth. In clear and decisive language, Traoré declared that Burkina Faso would not trade its sovereignty for dollars, no matter the size of the check. He acknowledged that $15 billion could change the trajectory of the country in the short term, but he insisted that Africa's dignity and future could not be bought, nor would it be mortgaged to another power seeking control over its natural wealth. What made this response even more remarkable was the way Traoré framed it. He did not reject the idea of partnerships, nor did he close the door to dialogue with the United States. Instead, he shifted the terms of the conversation. He made it clear that if the world sought Africa's resources, then Africa must negotiate on equal footing, setting its own conditions, demanding transparency, and ensuring that profits benefit its people rather than vanishing into foreign banks. This subtle but powerful reframing of the conversation turned a seemingly one-sided offer into a global statement of independence. Reactions poured in swiftly. Western analysts were stunned, some calling it reckless, others calling it a bold masterstroke that could set a precedent across the continent. In Europe, governments watched nervously, aware that their own resource deals with African nations might face similar resistance. In China and Russia, observers noted Traoré's stance with interest, seeing in it both an opportunity and a challenge. For many ordinary Africans, however, the response was electrifying. Across social media, youth activists and Pan-African leaders celebrated the refusal as a moment of dignity, proof that the new generation of African leadership would not be swayed by the old patterns of exploitation, but the implications stretched further. For Trump, positioning himself once more as a global dealmaker, the rejection represented a setback in both prestige and strategy. His entire public persona has been built on the idea that no one makes deals better than him. To be told no by a young African leader, and in such a public way, struck at the heart of that brand. Yet Trump himself was not one to retreat quietly. His allies hinted that the deal was just the beginning, that America's engagement with Burkina Faso and West Africa would continue to expand, even if the terms had to be renegotiated. The deeper question at play is not simply about oil, gold, or dollars. It is about the larger contest between Africa's vision of itself as a sovereign actor and the long-standing tendency of global powers to treat Africa as a chessboard of resources and influence. Traoré, in refusing the $15 billion offer, aligned himself with a growing wave of leaders who insist that Africa must write its own rules. He invoked memories of past leaders like Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, and Patrice Lumumba, who had likewise sought to chart independent paths but were often crushed by external forces. By rejecting the deal, Traoré was not merely responding to Trump. He was placing himself within a historical continuum of resistance, signaling that the age of dependency must finally end. This moment also sparked debates within Burkina Faso itself. Some critics argued that rejecting such a massive deal was a missed opportunity, that the country desperately needed funds to modernize its infrastructure and provide relief to its people. Others countered that quick money often comes with hidden chains and that the real task was to build a self-sustaining economy powered by African ingenuity rather than external dictates. Traoré's response, therefore, became a mirror reflecting not only the power struggle with the West, but also the internal tensions of balancing immediate needs with long-term sovereignty. Global financial markets noticed, too. Gold prices experienced a ripple as traders speculated on whether Burkina Faso and other African producers might take a stronger stance against Western exploitation. Oil analysts debated whether Africa could soon reshape its resource deals to favor domestic development. In both Washington and Brussels, think tanks rushed to produce reports on the Traoré Doctrine, a phrase coined to describe his policy of sovereignty-first negotiation. The very fact that such a phrase began circulating revealed how quickly his stance had elevated him from a national leader to a global figure. As days turned to weeks, the aftershocks of the refusal continued. In African capitals from Accra to Addis Ababa, leaders privately discussed how they might follow similar paths in their dealings with Western powers. Some saw Traoré's stance as courageous but risky, fearing retaliation or economic isolation. Others saw it as a blueprint for the future, proof that Africa could negotiate from strength if it spoke with one voice. For the youth of Africa, however, the symbolism was undeniable. Traoré became a hero, not just because he said no to Trump, but because he dared to prioritize dignity over dollars. In a continent where generations have grown up hearing stories of leaders who were bought, pressured, or toppled by external forces, this act of defiance resonated deeply. It was a signal that the narrative was shifting, that the future of Africa might not be written in foreign capitals, but within its own borders, by its own people. Of course, the story is far from over. The world is watching closely to see whether Traoré can sustain this bold stance. Offers will continue to come, pressures will mount, and the temptation of quick deals will remain. The ultimate test will B. Whether Burkina Faso can translate this symbolic victory into practical progress, building its own industries, securing fair trade agreements, and ensuring that its people see tangible improvements in their daily lives. Without that follow-through, critics will argue that rejection was empty posturing. With it, however, Traoré could reshape not only his nation, but the trajectory of Africa in the 21st century. The Trump offer and Traoré's response highlight a deeper truth about our world. Global power is no longer a simple equation of wealth and military might. Legitimacy, sovereignty, and moral courage now carry weight that can shift narratives and inspire movements. In refusing the $15 billion oil and gold deal, Traoré demonstrated that even nations long marginalized on the global stage can command attention, respect, and influence if they stand firm on their principles. As the dust settles, one thing is clear: the world is no longer the same. Trump may return with another offer, larger, more complex, or more persuasive. Other global powers may seek to fill the gap, hoping to secure what America could not. But for now, Traoré's refusal stands as a defining moment, a reminder that Africa is awakening to its own power, and that the days of easy deals imposed from abroad are coming to an end. The world has been shaken, not by money offered, but by dignity defended.